good Christian raising and an 8th grade education ain't going to get you in the door at American Airlines. As Kit said, the airlines are looking for a 4-year college degree plus aviation qualifications. There aren't a lot of ways to do that in a fairly efficient manner other than a university aviation program. The University Aviation Association is the organization representing the college and university aviation programs around the country. We have about 120 member schools, and we're in the business of producing people who are going to be your future aviation professionals. This goes beyond pilots. It includes aviation managers and other technical specialty fields. But we're here to talk about pilot training and supply today from our perspective in the university education arena. There's a number of issues. We have recruitment and selection, the physical resources that we have available to train our people, a growing concern about where we will find enough instructors to train all these pilots, the funding issues, which, again, as Kit alluded to, it's a lot of money. Also, training goals and objectives, rationalizing how we train pilots with the demands, the requirements that the airlines are looking for, what they want to see in a pilot. In terms of recruitment and selection, I can tell you for sure, having spent 5 years as the director of an aviation program at a university, that there is no shortage of interested students. When you have the cattle calls at the beginning of the academic year for all the new freshmen, and when you have recruiting visits, and you tell them you have an aviation program where they can become a pilot, a lot of hands go up. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Until they find out how much it costs. In addition, many of those who are interested in the programs lack the aptitude, and many of them lack the attitude too, to be professional pilots. Universities do not screen for aviation aptitude the way the military does when they're looking at potential pilots.
Aero-TV is brought to you by...
You've heard of this thing called WAS, right? The Wide Area Augmentation System lets you fly GPS glide path approaches without relying on ground-based landing aids. No VOR, no ILS, no problem. Fact is, WAS is so smart, it even knows what you're going to say next time you need it. And don't have it on board. Wah, I want my WAS now! I was really crying there for a second.
Finally, there is the funding issue. It costs a lot. Many students think they can do it and then discover they can't pay for it. As a result, there is a fairly high attrition rate in flight training. Universities always are short on money. Many changes in the way universities are funded, particularly when they're state schools, which used to receive much larger handouts from the state per student than they do today. That means a lack of funds to modernize the training fleets the universities use. We also have a lack of modern flexible simulators. It's hard to come up with $250,000 or more for a new state-of-the-art glass panel simulator that emulates new aircraft. Perhaps the most critical need in the immediate future is flight instructors. At the universities, virtually all of the instructors are recent graduates of the program, building pilot and command time so they can get hired by a regional carrier. At this moment, the regionals are hiring pilots faster than the universities can produce them. Sort of like eating all your seed corn and having nothing left to plant in the spring. You put off starvation, but only till next winter. In addition, we're seeing instructors having virtually no real-world flying experience. Their entire flying experience is in the training environment around the local airport. They may have 100 hours of instrument time, but virtually all of them are flight training locally, and they may have only perhaps a few hours of actual in-the-weather experience of going somewhere and coming back. The big issues, that are preventing this from getting any better are that, first of all, the recent graduates are not interested in being instructors. That's not what they came in the program for. They came in the program to be airline pilots. And sitting in the right seat of a Cessna 172 teaching touch and goes to somebody with 12 hours isn't what they had in mind. And they're not very good at it either. And you put those two together and it's kind of discouraging. In addition, generally instructor pay is fairly poor and they have no benefits. They're contract employees. They may receive $12 or $15 an hour and no benefits, no vacation, no medical, no health, no nothing.
Aero-TV is brought to you by Cirrus aircraft have always been easy to fly. Now they're easier than ever to buy. A complete line of ownership programs gives you everything you need to purchase, trade, finance, lease, insure, and warranty your Cirrus. There's even an ownership program for non-pilots. The Cirrus Access Pilot can teach you how to fly or fly the plane for you. Find out more at www.cirrusdesign.com. Cirrus, for the love of flying.
Funding. Kit said something about $65,000. Well, that might pay for the flight training a few years ago. It won't pay for it anymore in one of these major programs, including a regional jet transition course. Typically, the cost of a 4-year university flight education is $120,000 to $180,000. You're a high school graduate facing that. That's a tough thing to hook up with. How many times can your parents hawk their house? The students can't borrow that much themselves. Government loans, government-subsidized loans are limited to about $25,000 total over 4 years, and only about $2,500 the first year. They wind up with debt loads that are totally incompatible with their initial pay, and they're faced with 10 to 15 years payback once they get out of school. If they get that's assuming they complete the program, and as I said, over half of them don't. But they've still got the debt load. There is a distinct disparity between airline needs and university products. Because, to a great extent, of FAA rules and regulations for licensing and certification, the current university aviation program is designed to produce a light plane general aviation single pilot IFR crew member. Somebody who can jump in a Cessna 210 and fly it as left-seater here and to somewhere else and back. That's not what the airlines want. They want people who are qualified to be multi-crew crew members in large turbine aircraft. Unfortunately, there's no way to take somebody ab initio and train them as a large crew, multi-crew co-pilot. We need to revisit the licensing and certification process and adjust training accordingly. Unfortunately, if we do that, we will also end the production of flight instructors, because the flight instructors have to be small plane general aviation single pilot IFR pilots. That's another problem. Solutions. For instructors, we're going to have to change the paradigm. We're going to have to find ways to encourage career instructors with better pay and benefits. That has a cost impact. We're going to have to encourage second career instructors from air carrier and military retirees. We're going to have to find ways of getting them interested. If you walk into, it's interesting, we do get a huge number of our faculty from the military. If you walk into a UMAA meeting and say, "Excuse me, Colonel," about half the heads will turn around. Funding. The end users are going to have to share some of the cost burden, because our students can't and the universities aren't in that business. Training goals, we have to look at the MCPL, the multi-crew pilot license model, and see about training in that direction instead of the current FAA direction. That will require some cooperation from the FAA. Finally, we have to recognize the impact of all of this on the recent graduate CFI force.